We're here at Joint Venture Silicon Valley, and one of the comments that was made by a speaker is this idea of digital governance. And one of the things I would almost call it shared governance. It spoke to this idea of distributed ability to be connected. And David, you led then with a panel on connected government, connected cities. What does that mean to you as far as the impact on regular everyday citizens?
I think that we're moving into an era of smart cities. We're moving into a situation where we're going to be implementing technology in the civic space. And then the challenge is not only how do we do that at the city level, but how do we do that at the regional level? In other words, if a city implements an IoT network, and then another city implements a different IoT network, it's fine as long as you don't leave the city. But you certainly wouldn't want your smart city assets to stop at the border and say, I can't go any further because I'm no longer... And we're a mega region. The difference between San Jose, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale is like crossing the street. So as Joint Venture Silicon Valley is an organization that does regional initiatives, our goal is to see smart cities implemented on a regional scale. And we're going to be launching that new initiative. We've announced it today. And going forward, we're going to be hosting seminars, meetings. We have a steering committee. And that's really going to be to talk about this question of how do we do this at the regional level.
And what is the name of the initiative? I mean, what is it specifically? Let's talk to that.
Yeah, we're calling it the Smart Region Initiative.
And so I suppose it's like, as you say, you cross the street, you have a road, the road doesn't stop suddenly, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't know in the Silicon Valley what city you're in. I said maybe the street signs change color or something like that. But IoT assets, autonomous vehicles, when we get to the point where we've got a lot of networks, we don't want those to be, we don't want the map of smart cities to be a balkanized, a map of the Balkan states, you know what I'm saying? So we want to be able to say we're going to do this at a regional level, specifically for transportation assets. I think that's key. I mean, you think about transit and how fractured transit is in the Silicon Valley. We have 24 different transit systems in the Bay Area. Not all of them interlink with each other. And there are 700 fare profiles across those 24 systems. So right away, you can identify that there's a need to do regional alignment, just in terms of payment, if nothing else, but also in scheduling. And that's something that Joint Venture is working on.
And that was kind of a theme of your panel, was this idea of ease of use, making it easy, right?
It does. Government has to be as easy to use as an app. I mean, I realize that that's a simplistic statement, but that's what citizens want, especially younger people. They've grown up in an area where they've seen all of the systems that I grew up with completely disrupted. You know, taxis being fair didn't work as well, so Uber had an opportunity to come in and take that market share. So what I think we're seeing is this movement towards why is government not as easy to use as an app on my phone? Why do I have to go down to City Hall to do something? How come I can't do it online? Why can't I pay my business taxes online with a credit card? Why do I have to get out a checkbook, an envelope, a stamp? You know, the one time of the year I have to mail a letter is when I have to pay my business taxes, you know. And I'm asking my wife, like, where's the checkbook? She's like, I don't know, I haven't used it in a year. It's like, yeah, it's that time again.
And what's interesting about your initiative is it's about movement. It's about movement not only of people, but of bits, of information, of everything. So it seems like you're taking a very holistic approach to this.
And I think you have to. I think when you do anything like this, there are three key things. You've got the economics, you've got the technology, and you've got the policy. And so if you don't look at it, it's like a three-legged stool. Pull one of the legs off, it's going to fall over. So you have to have the policy, and you have to have a synthesized approach to this, especially in cities. You can't just come in with a, hey, this technology is really cool, let's implement it approach. There has to be a human element to it, there has to be an economic element to it, there has to be a policy element to it, or else it's not going to work.
It seems like a big value add that your group can provide is this policy leveling between cities.
I think so, and that's certainly something that we do as Joint Ventures. Been around since the early 90s. We have operated as a think tank within the civic space, and so I think this is a natural extension. We've been looking at the smart city space for a year, considering whether or not we want to get into it. Not only that, but how can we add unique value? I didn't want to be a me too in smart city. There's plenty of other organizations that are going to do smart city. We want to add something unique, and I think that policy element and the synthesis of those three elements is really something that we're in a position to do. And other organizations are not doing.
And from a data standpoint, I mean, it seems like that's another area where if you have common data sets, and you talked about that on the panel, your panelists did.
Yeah, I mean, open data is certainly one of the areas where I think there's a need for regional alignment. We've had meetings with entities that range from local up to the White House talking about the question of open data. I mean, you could work on open data for the next 10 years and that would be a full-time job. So you do have a need to align regionally in open data because every city is implementing open data in a different way. So one of the things that we've done already is we've begun to develop the relationships with the chief information officers and the chief technology officers for cities to start asking that question. Well, how are you doing open data? How are you doing open data? But I think it's generally agreed that it's either nonprofit or academia that is the right place to place those data repositories, to manage their security, to manage policy, and potentially to create value add from those data sets. So it's a curated approach to open data is we're lacking, and I think that's what we're going to do going forward.
And that also leads to the idea of privacy. You have all this data out there and all these sensors and so forth, and I suppose that's another area where you could make recommendations.
Well, I think we do need to go in that direction. I mean, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has begun a process of reaching out to cities, asking them to implement open democratic process review for surveillance, what they call surveillance tech or spy tech. And I think this is really important because citizens will react to cameras. If they see a camera up on a pole and go, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing with that camera? So I don't think that cities can implement surveillance technology or technology that can be used for surveillance, right? There's technology that is specifically intended for surveillance, and then there's unintentional consequences of technology. So I think we need to look at that, and we need to be very open to the citizens of the region, and because otherwise we're going to get a blowback, and then all this is going to fall apart.
And finally, there's the whole accessibility of it. People getting on broadband. There was a stat thrown out, I think 95,000 citizens of this San Jose still aren't on broadband.
Yeah, so digital inclusion is certainly a part of what the city is doing and what other groups, other cities are doing. We're involved with that. We've been involved with that through our wireless communications initiative, our increasingly misnamed wireless communications initiative. And so I think digital inclusion is a big part of what we're trying to do. I mean, it's absolutely tragic that in the Silicon Valley, where technology is invented, where technology is created, that we have people that are not participating in this. And the reality is that in the 21st century, broadband connectivity is just as important as electricity, water, or sewage. It's a daily requirement. It's a requirement of daily life in the 21st century. And no one would be okay with somebody not having electricity. So we need to make sure that they're online so they can take advantage of all the internet has to offer.
Excellent. Well, I hear it's starting again, so we should get back in there. David, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.